Alright, so taking a look at this, I'll show you what I'm seeing. I don't really see anything. What I was curious about was maybe I feel it in the wheel, I was wondering if these could be loose, but the hub the wheel bolts to the hub, not to the rotor. And so we were feeling our looseness in the wheel. I don't think these could be, well, I mean, they could be loose, but that's not the source. So, the bearing itself looked okay. I'm wondering if this, I mean, that hub, the race does not feel loose. Let me tap the back side of it and see what it does. It feels solid. So where's our looseness coming from? The bearing itself? The race looks good. Really don't feel any wear in it. No signs that it's been loose in there. No heat marks. Where's our looseness? I guess let's check and see if the front one's loose. Or any signs of wear on the front one. I mean, everything's tight. Everything's tight. Why is it loose? Alright, so I went over and I cleaned the bearings up. Of course, they're not perfect now because I put them back in the race. But the bearings look good. I don't see any signs of or any signs of any issues. Where is our looseness? Alright, so I went to the parts car and grabbed the spindle off of it just to start kind of comparing parts. And what I found is that the bearing, I slid it on my original bearing. I slid it on the hub, and it fit pretty good. But when I looked at the hub, I can show y'all in a minute. When I looked at the hub, what it looked to me like the bearing may have this thing came apart with an Australian Timken race and a national Japan, made in Japan, bearing. That is not good. Somebody put a bearing in it. Probably, I bet they just threw a used bearing they had in it and left the race. That's not good at all. Should not do that. Don't ever do that. So we've got the one from the parts car. This is a SKF. It's made in Mexico, but it'll do. And it's mated with a SKF Mexico bearing paired up. So we're going to drive that in. Let's clean this hub out a little bit. It all looks good in here, so I don't think we have any issues here. And we are going to drive this in. Now the other hub had some damage where the seal drives in. I don't know how, but it was pretty banged up. So we've got our SKF race here. And I'm going to do something you should never do. But I'll put some safety glasses on. And I'm going to drive this seal in. Race in. Drive this race in. Alright. Popped these 5 bolts out and swapped rotors off the parts car and just kind of scuffed it up because it was rusty. We'll do a brake job on it at some point, but since I was this far into it, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and swap rotors. I've got to replace the caliper on the other side. I've actually already have it ordered. It was supposed to come in for this weekend, and what came in was the wrong caliper, and so the right one won't be until next week. So when I do the caliper on the other side, I'll go ahead and it does look like the right seal. I went and got a seal. When I do the caliper on the other side, I'll go ahead and get the other rotor off the car, off the parts car, and swap over. And then, because my rotors are not very good. So let's go ahead and finish cleaning this up, and I will get it pretty clean in there. I'll finish cleaning this bearing up, and then we'll put the I'll pack the bearing, put the bearing in, and then we will finish cleaning up with some brake cleaner, and then we'll be good to go. Bearing packed, and I didn't video that just because once I get the stuff on my hands, I can't handle the camera. So nothing really to it. Put grease in your palm of your hand and take the bearing and keep smashing it into your hand, into the grease, until you see the grease start pushing up through here and go all the way around the bearing. Plenty of videos on that. I think I even have a video on it. So we need to get the seal in. It's not the best quality seal to drive works. It's kind of like the cheapy, about the cheapest seal you can get, but it's the only seal I could get. O'Reilly's didn't have one. AutoZone didn't have one. O'Reilly's couldn't get one for like 4 days, and they were going to charge me shipping to do it. Sometimes you can get these things to go on easy, sometimes you can't. AutoZone would have had to order it as well, and Advanced had this one in stock. But like I said, this was the only brand they had in stock. I'm gonna have to get my seal driver, I guess. Yeah, let me go get my seal driver. Alright, so all I've got is a little cheap seal driver, and just find the one that fits in here, which that one fits, and then you take your driver tool and this goes on there, and then that goes there, and that is it. And that is the seal driver. So we get this thing straight. We're gonna have to do a lot of cleaning on this thing because it is dirty, dirty, dirty. So we are ready to take some grease. Let me do one last wipe right there. Put that in there. It's good to put grease down in the hub. Put some on the face there, on the race. And we've got this bearing ready to go in right there. So I'm not gonna be able to video this. I'm gonna go take this over to the car, and well, maybe I'll go set y'all up and then I'll video. Alright, so you're going to want to be real careful when you shove the spindle on. You may even want to not put the front bearing in. What I'm going to do is actually just hold the front bearing as I slip it on, because what it'll do, it'll try to push the bearing out and it'll end up on the floor. See, that was a tight fit. I was not getting a tight fit like that with the old bearing, slipping it on the spindle. It was definitely a loose fit on the spindle, I think. So we've got our grease cap, and I need to put a little bit more grease back in it. And we've got our lock, whatever you want to call this, lock bolt. I actually used some of the grease that was in our cap to grease up the old bearing. What I did is I drove that other race, the mismatched race, and put that bearing, and we're going to put that back in the parts car, just so if I need to move it around it, I can get a wheel on it. And it's going to have to be what it is. So let me go put some fresh grease in this cap. Alright, fresh grease in the cap. Now what we need to do is tighten this thing down. What works well to tighten these down is go and put the Allen wrench in it. Well, and then you can use the Allen wrench to spin it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go tight. So that's definitely way too tight, and we'll see. We're going to keep tightening as we turn it. Now we're going to back off till it's loose. We're going to turn it. What we're doing is we're tightening and loosening to kind of seat the bearings in and kind of push grease out, because you've packed the bearings so full of grease they're not going to seat tight against the race. So while we've got this here, I'm not getting any wobble out of it. like I was the old one. So either that bearing was loose on the shaft, which this one definitely fits tighter, or that race being not matched to it. So like I said, we're gonna tighten and loosen this a few times as we spin. We will tighten it just a little. What that's doing is, it, like I said, it's pushing the grease out, getting a nice tight fit. And then when you loosen it, you'll notice you don't have to loosen it as much. And we're gonna just find kind of a, see, that definitely stopped it. Went too tight. We're just kind of looking for a happy medium. I think that's gonna be probably it right there. I'm just trying to see if I can get any. I can't get any slop out of the bearings. So let's remember where it is. You kind of can just do it till it. I'm kind of a trial and error guy. I just keep working on it until I get to where I feel comfortable with it. I think that's too tight. I think we're good right there. That feels nice. And you don't have to get this thing super tight. You can kind of test how. See, I cannot move that nut. And that feels nice. We got a good fit there. And we put our cap on. Go get my hammer and screwdriver. So total cost for this repair was like $6 for the seal. Of course, if I wouldn't have had the parts car, I wouldn't have had a bearing. So I would have had to buy a bearing. The bearing itself looked fine. I don't think there was any issues with the, it's just, its fitment on the race, or well, its fitment on the race was in question because it had the wrong race on it, but its fitment on the spindle just did not feel tight. I don't know if that bearing was just loose, you know, had made itself loose. But the spindle itself looked fine, so I really don't know. I'm going to throw some blue Loctite on these caliper bolts because I had one of them back off once, and I don't want that to happen again. So I'm going to throw some of that on there. Then we'll go ahead and tighten these down, and we'll put the wheel on it and we will check it. But I'm going to cut the video for now. Wheel's back on. It's tight. Before you could hear it. That's just the brake pads rubbing. But we've got a fixed hub that I think was the bearing rocking on the spindle, which if that would have been left too long, it probably would have ruined the spindle. Like I said, it was either that or the mismatched race and bearing. But either way, we addressed both of those issues by replacing the bearing. And the front bearing, of course, cleaned it up and it was fine. I don't know if the race matched on it, but it seems okay, and I left it alone. So it looked better than the bearing that came out of the parts car. The race on the bearing out of the parts car, it just showed some, I'm gonna say, like heat mark, not really heat marks, but a little bit of discoloration on the race, which probably, I mean, it would have been fine to run it, but like I said, this one just looked better. So that's what we ran, and I didn't see any issues with it. So we are in good shape. I was in the middle of aligning the front end when I found that. I was jacking it up to put a mark on the wheel, which I've done a video on that before, so no need to video that again. But that's what I was trying to do when I ended up getting sidetracked with a loose wheel. So it's fixed. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.